All right, we're I think we should start the session now. And this session will be recorded. Katandonya. Okay. A very good evening and a warm welcome to everyone present here this evening. I am Dr. H. Leslie Tangi, an associate professor from Government Shambana College and the convener for this conference. We welcome all the speakers, so scholars, presenters, and participants joining us this evening for this international conference on constitutional safeguards and tribal autonomy in Northeast India. Uh, this conference, the Mizoram Legal Services Authority and the Department of Political Science, Government Shambana College has organized this conference in collaboration with Mizoram Political Science Association, MIPSA. And since this is a two-day conference, this online session marks the first day as we have speakers and presenters who are not physically present here. And tomorrow, which will be the second day, we shall continue this conference at Hotel Regency at Zarwal, Aizawl. And this evening, we are truly honored to have with us our distinguished keynote speaker, Dr. Anuj Kumar from Rushford Business School, Lucerne, Switzerland, who will speak on the topic Law as a Tool for Empowerment, Indigenous Struggles in the Northeast India. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Anuj Kumar, who is currently with the, like I mentioned before, Rushford Business School, Lucerne, Switzerland. Dr. Anuj Kumar is the head of research and associate professor at Rushford Business School, Switzerland, where he also leads the Doctor of Business Administration, DBA program. He is a postdoctoral fellow in Malaysia, honorary research fellow at INTI, International University, Malaysia. Professor Kumar has successfully established collaborations with universities and institutions across India, Spain, London, and various other countries. And tonight we are very fortunate to have him with us. He will be delivering the keynote lecture, like mentioned, titled Law as a Tool of Empowerment, Indigenous Struggles in the Northeast. And with no further ado, let us welcome Dr. Anuj Kumar on screen. And Professor, the screen is yours.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, let me start. So, the topic of my speech today as a keynote speaker, law as a tool of empowerment, indigenous struggles in the Northeast. And I'm very much thankful to the Honorable Chair, esteemed colleagues, distinguished guests, and the dear friends. It is a privilege to stand before you today at this vital conference on constitutional safeguards and tribal autonomy in Northeast India. This gathering is not merely an academic exercise, it is a reaffirmation of a collective commitment to justice, dignity, and the self-determination of indigenous people in one of the most diverse and dynamic regions of our country. Our theme today, law as a tool of empowerment, indigenous struggles in the Northeast, invites us to reflect deeply on the dual nature of law. For centuries, law has been a weapon of control, a language of domination, but law can also be an instrument of liberation, a vocabulary for resistance and renewal. The challenge before us is to ensure that in Northeast and indeed across India, law serves as a bridge to empowerment rather than a barrier to identity. The historical context from colonial subjugation to constitutional recognition. To understand how law functions as a tool of empowerment, we must first remember how it once functioned as a tool of exclusion. So, colonial rule in the Northeast did not merely draw lines on a map, it creates lines of power, of access, and of belonging. The British administration, under the guise of protection, introduced the system of excluded and partially excluded areas under the Government of India Act 1935. These were not acts of benevolence but of strategic control. The so called protection isolated tribal communities while ensuring imperial access to resources, trade routes, and labor. Yet, this colonial framework inadvertently preserved a space, a legal memory for later recognition. When India became free, the Constituent Assembly grappled with a fundamental question and very important: how do we reconcile national unity with regional diversity? How do we guarantee equality while respecting difference? It was here that leaders like Gopinath Bordoloi, Jayapal Singh Munda, and A.V. Thakkar articulated a vision that found expression in the sixth schedule of our constitution. It was a vision not of assimilation, but of autonomy and understanding that self governance rooted in customary institutions is not a privilege to be granted, but a right to be recognized. Second, the constitutional framework, a living charter for empowerment. How? The Constitution of India is not a static document, it is a living instrument that evolves with the needs of the people. For indigenous communities in Northeast, it provides multiple layers of legal empowerment. The sixth schedule, unique to the Northeast, created autonomous district councils in Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. These councils have executive, and judicial powers over land, forest, customs, and village administration. In many ways, they represent one of the earliest experiments in decentralized governance within India. Article 371A to 371G further extend spatial protection, preserving Naga customary law and ownership of land and resources, safeguarding Mizo identity and ensuring local control over development. Beyond constitutional text, there are protective legislations like Forest Right Act of 2006, the Panchayat Act 1996, PESA, and state state specific arrangement that recognize community land ownership and customary institution. Taken together, these frameworks embody the idea that empowerment comes not from uniformity but from recognition of difference as dignity. Indigenous struggles law in the hands of people. Yet, law by itself does not empower. It is people who breathe life into law through their struggle, interpretations, and mobilizations. The story of Northeast is replete with such struggle, where communities have taken the language of law and transformed it into the grammar of resistance. First such resistance was a struggle for land and resources right lands in indigenous cosmology is not a commodity, it is identity, spirituality, and survival. Across the Northeast, the assertion of community rights over land and forest has been central. In Meghalaya, the Khasi and Garo Hills Autonomous Council have long resisted encroachment by external actors seeking to exploit coal and limestone resources. The 2014 ban on unscientific coal mining by the National Green Tribal triggered both an environmental and legal debate. who owns the land, and who decides its use. The ongoing negotiations show how law can be a site of both conflict and creativity. Similarly, in Manipur, the resistance to the extension of the forest act into hill areas without consent of tribal authorities has revived conversation between the legal sanctity of customary land tenure. The invocation of constitutional safeguards by local bodies reflects a deepening legal consciousness among indigenous communities. Second, the gender and customary law, expanding the circle of empowerment. Empowerment must also mean inclusion within indigenous societies. Across the Northeast, women have been reinterpreting customary law to demand participation and equality. In Nagaland, the debate over women's representation in urban local bodies become a landmark moment. The Naga Mothers Association and other groups invoked not only the constitution's promise of equality under Act 14, but also argued the spirit of Naga customary law is not exclusion but harmony. Their legal petitions and civic mobilization reframed what autonomy means. Autonomy not as patriarchal preservation, but as dynamic and inclusive self governance. Peace, identity, and the legal path to self determination. For decades, the Northeast has witnessed conflicts rooted in demands for autonomy and recognition, but the legal frameworks of autonomy, while innovative, have not always resolved these tensions. Yet, the ongoing peace accords and dialogues show that communities continue to place faith in law as a medium of negotiation. The Bordeaux Accord of 2020, the Resettlement Agreement, and the ongoing discussions with Naga and Meitei groups all underscore the centrality of legal arrangement in translating conflict into coexistence. What is heartening is that the discourse has gradually shifted from secession to self determination within the constitutional framework. Law, once viewed as an imposition of the state, is being reimagined as a space for dialogue and justice. Challenge. What are the challenges? The fragility of legal empowerment. But let us not romanticize the picture. The journey of legal empowerment in Northeast remains fraught with contradiction. Erosion of autonomy. Erosion of autonomy. Over time, the authority of Autonomous Council has been diluted by state interventions, bureaucratic control, and the inadequate financial devolution. The promise of self governance cannot thrive without real fiscal and administrative autonomy. Ambiguities of customary law. While customary law preserves identity, it can sometimes clash with constitutional principles of equality, especially regarding gender and minority rights. The challenge is to interpret custom in ways that align with justice and inclusivity. Environmental and development pressures, mega dams, extractive industries, and militarization often override local consent. The law's failure to protect indigenous consent as envisioned in global standards like UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People reveal the gap between paper and practice. What is the marginalization of smaller tribes? Within the broader narrative, the smaller tribes and the subgroups often feel excluded from the dominant frameworks of representation. True empowerment must be plural, even within the indigenous sphere. The way forward. What is the way forward? Reimagining law as a dialogue. So, how do we transform law from a distant authority into a living instrument of empowerment? Reinvigorate the sixth schedule, strengthen the autonomy of district council by ensuring adequate funds, capacity building, and participatory planning. Let council evolve into genuine institutions of democratic self-governance. Codify customary law through consultation. Many communities are now documenting customary practices, not to fossil them, but to ensure transparency and consistency. This process should be led by communities themselves, guided by constitutional values. Integrate environmental justice. Development planning in the Northeast must respect the principle of free, prior, and informed consent. Legal empowerment means empowering communities to say both yes and no to projects that affect their land and lives. Empower women and youth as legal actors. Indigenous women, youth groups, and the traditional council must be trained and supported to engage with the law, whether through legal aid, documentation, or advocacy. Law becomes empowering only when its language is accessible to those it serves. Promote intercultural jurisprudence. Courts, scholars, and policymakers must approach indigenous law not as a folklore, but as a legitimate, sophisticated legal system. The dialogue between customary and the constitutional law must be one of mutual respect, not hierarchy. So, the conclusion from struggle to strength. In closing, let us return to the central idea: law as a tool of empowerment. The indigenous people of Northeast India have never been passive subjects of law. They have been its co authors, asserting, negotiating, and redefining it through every generation. Their struggle from land rights to linguistic identity, from gender justice to self governance, remind us that empowerment is not given, it is claimed, often through the very instruments that once constrained. When the law is grounded in justice, when autonomy is coupled with accountability, when diversity is treated not as a problem but as a principle, then the Constitution of India fulfills its promise. As we deliberate today, let us remember that the true strength of the law lies not in the text of statutes, but to the courage of people who make us those statutes meaningful. The indigenous peoples of Northeast have shown us the empowerment begins when law listens and learn. Let us then commit ourselves to ensuring that the law continues to be not a fence around the freedom, but a pathways towards it. So law should be for empowerment, not to create fear, not to create a divide. So that's it from my end. Thank you very much for inviting me for this keynote speech. I hope the little time which I have acquired, I would be able to deliver something valuable to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kumar, for the enlightening and thought-provoking address. And thank you for your time as well. I know you're in a hurry, but we did learn a lot, and your insight have provided an excellent academic foundation for discussion that will follow a little later. But then and having said that, we will move on to our next session, the technical session here. And I will be I would like to introduce our discussant for this session, Dr. Zoram Thanga, hi. He's an associate professor, Department of Political Science, Government J. Thankima College. Now, for this session, we have three presenters, and they will be presenting one after another. And at the end of the session, we will have our discussant, Dr. Zoram Thanga, giving critical analysis and also conducting the discussion and the question answer sessions. So first, we have a paper presenter, Dr. P. Lalpek Lui. She's an assistant professor from Tetso College, Jumukitima, Nagaland. Her title is Between State and Tribe, the MADC's Sixth Schedule Amendment within Mizoram's Shifting Political Dynamics. Dr. Lalpek Lui, are you there?
Yes.
Yes, Yom Kiro. Okay. Welcome. And Now the screen is yours and you may now share your presentation.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, hello everyone. I am P. Lepeklui, a faculty at the Department of Political Science, Testo College, Nagaland. And the title of my paper is Between State and Tribe, the Medici Sixth Schedule Amendment with Mizoram's Shifting Political Dynamic. So to begin my presentations, on 5th May 2022, election to Mara Autonomous District Council was held, and the result was declared on 9th May 2022. And out of the 25 seats that are there in Mara Autonomous District Council, 12 seats were won by Bharatiya Janata Party, that is BJP, and 9 seats were taken by Mizo National Front, that is MNF, and 4 seats were taken by Indian National Congress, that is INC. And that led to a hung government, but eventually that led to, soon after the election, there was a hung government, but eventually it led to a coalition government that was formed by Congress and MNF. But in November 2022, the MNF and INC coalition government was ousted by no confidence motion, and that subsequently led the coalition government, which had been in power for only about 6 months, was voted out. And following the no confidence motion, the BJP, they formed a government by three supported by three MNF members to form a new government. So here, the 2022 MADC elections is quite significant, as well as it's quite interesting because it reflects a dramatic political shift in Mizoram's Autonomous Council, particularly given particularly significant the state traditionally non-BJP political landscape. And here, the fact that the BJP emerged as the single largest party by winning 12 seats in an area that is mainly inhabited by a tribal Christian minority was quite significant, as well as it was quite interesting. And in addition to this, in the 2022 state Legislative Assembly election, the two seats that we have from Mara Autonomous District Councils were also won by the BJP candidate. So in this regard, the paper tried to understand, or it begins with the questions, who are the Maras? And in that context, it tried to unravel how a Christian-dominated region open up a space for a political party like BJP that has Hindu as its ideology. So coming into the context, who are the Maras? The Maras, as we all know, are the scheduled tribe inhabiting the southern part of Mizoram. And initially, the region or the area that was inhabited by the Mara was part of the Poi Lekher Regional Council. And in 1972, under the same context of the Indian Constitution, the Regional Council was given the status of Autonomous Council known as the Lakher District, and which was rechristened as Mara District in 1988. And today, the whole region or the Mara inhabited region is known as Mara Autonomous District Council. And coming into the changing political scenario and the rise of BJP in Mara Autonomous District Council, here I would like to mention that even before the expansion or before the emergence of BJP in the Mara inhabited area, that is MADC, having a separate administrations or autonomy have always been the driving force of political mobilizations among the Mara population. So for that matter, there were also a political party, namely Mara Freedom Party, that was formed in 1960s or in 1963 to be precise, that fight for separate administrations. And there were also Marat Democratic Front, that is MDF, that was a regional party that has a stronghold sentiment in the mind and the heart of the Mara populations. And this particular party, MDF, it also fight for a union territory for the Mara populations in the 90s. But since the MDF, the Mara democratic front, since it cannot have influence, or it cannot expand its horizon beyond the Mara Autonomous District Council area. It merged along, although it has a strong sentiment in the mind and heart of the Mara population, it merged with the Bharatiya Janata Party in 2017. And it was the merger of the MDF and the rise of the BJP at the parliamentary or the general elections have paved the way for the expansion or maybe the emergence of BJP to the southern corner of Mizoram. And in addition to the factors that I have just mentioned, in 2018, the then Home Minister Rajnath Singh, at the rally during the State Legislative Assembly election campaign, he promised to implement the amendment to the sixth schedule if any of the BJP candidates were elected from the Mara Autonomous District Council area. So the promise that was made by the then Home Minister Rajnath Singh has raised the expectations among the people as well as the MADC leaders. So from there onwards, the amendment of the sixth schedule provisions have become the political agenda of the BJP. And even though the BJP candidate lost the election in 2018 from Marai inhabited area, but in 2019, the Congress legislature, which formed government at the Mara Autonomous District Council, it merged with the BJP. And why did the Indian National Congress INC merge with BJP in 2012? The reason was that if we look at the political scenario of Mizoram, there is a pattern that whoever come into power at the state legislative, they try to have an influence or impact over the autonomous district council. So as a result of that, or in that context, there was a fear of dissolutions or dissolvement among the Congress-led government. And after the INC, Indian National Congress, failed to regain its majority at the state legislative assembly elections. And at the same time, the BJP has also promised them to amend the sixth schedule to the constitution. And all these factors um, have worked on the advantageous side for the BJP to expand its horizon. And as a result of that, as I have mentioned, in 2023 State Legislative Assembly election, the two candidates from Siaha and Palak constituencies, they are from BJP. So from the presentations that I have made, we can see that the freedom to rule or maybe preserve culture and their way of their life have always been the aspirations of the Mara Autonomous District Council leaders, and that had led to a negotiation between the BJP and the MADC. And at the same time, if we look at, we can also see that the BJP has tactically, or it has succeeded in appealing the minorities, or it has successfully changed its technique of how they deal with the minorities by using welfare or maybe by using fundings, etc., etc. And in addition to that, moreover, the failure of the MNF, the failure of the MNF-led government in 2018 to accommodate the interests and the aspirations of the Mara people, that have also led, in some way, have also contributed to the emergence or the expansions of BJP in the southern part of Mizoram, or area inhabited by the Mara people. So here, what I wanted to highlight is that the rise of the BJP in MADC is quite significant, as it reflects the political shift in the state of Mizoram from no presence at all to the from no presence at all at the state to the single largest party holding a government at the district council, although this might not have translated into the state level electoral breakthrough, but now BJP has become part of the BJP agenda has become part of the political discourse in Mizoram. For instance, even in the upcoming by-elections at the Dampa constitution, the popular phrase that each one of us have come true is, from Dampa to Delhi, from Delhi to Dampa, that in a way have also shown how the expansion of BJP from the southern corner to the northern corner of Mizoram. So having said that, I would like to conclude my presentation by saying that the expansion or the emergence of BJP at the Mara Autonomous District Council have now made BJP as the dominant or one of the electoral players even in the state of Mizoram, mainly inhabited by the tribal Christians, or I would rather say BJP is able to turn its attention to a place where earlier it never had its presence. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, hi. Thank you so much for your insightful presentation, Becky. So now we'll move on to the next paper. Our presenters have been requested to stick to 10 minutes presentation, and I think Dr. Becky did a good job on that one. Before we move on to our next presenter, I would like to introduce somebody who has joined us all the way from United States of America, and she is Maria Silo, who is a founder of US Mizo Academic Network, and they are collaborating on with Ivy League colleges, university. So later on, she will be having her insights at the end of the paper presentations, but we're very grateful to Maria for being with us this evening. And now we shall move on to our next paper presenter, who is Dr. Rolo. He is an associate professor of IIT Roorkee. Dr. Rolo, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, lovely. Okay, before you present your paper, I have your book right here with me. He is an author of Nationalism in the Vernacular. I'm sure a lot of us have read it, and he is the author of this book, and we're very proud to have you as a presenter this evening. So, Dr. Roluapuya, now we invite you to present your paper.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me. I hope my voice is audible.
Yes, it's audible.
Okay, so I thank MIPSA and the organizing committee for giving me this platform to speak today on something related to tribal autonomy, and also to the host, for the generous introduction, and also sharing a bit about my book. So anyway, since I don't have a lot of time, I will just quickly run through my slides. So my paper is titled Tribal Autonomy in India, Self-Rule or Ruling the Tribes. I've been thinking about this issue for a bit, and in a negative sense, because I think the meaning of tribal autonomy in contemporary India, has really lost its original purpose. That is, granting some form of self-rule. And then I will use the case of Manipur to illustrate, my argument. So to start with, the paper revisits, of course, the old debate on tribal autonomy. All of us know about the integration isolationist debate between Guri and Elwin. And much of these scholars, particularly who are in the discipline of sociology and anthropology, have engaged with this debate quite extensively. But I would say that this debate is quite restrictive, because if you look at the context in which this debate took place, then it is mostly restricted to areas covered under today fifth and the sixth schedule. And why I say restricted is because it does not include many tribal communities, particularly Northeast India, or even in mainland parts of India, where fifth schedule is implemented, who are outside of the purview of the sixth schedule. So then all of us know that conceptually autonomy is a political arrangement which aims to institute a system of governance. Some scholars would like to view it as a decentralization of power. Many political scientists view it as a form of federalism. And also, several other scholars look at, autonomy as a mechanism of recognition, a mechanism for recognition of rights, whether it is social, economic, and cultural rights. So in my case, in my paper, I specifically look at the non-scheduled region in Manipur, and I make two interrelated arguments. One is that autonomy or granting autonomy has shifted in terms of governing the tribes by turning them into state space, borrowing from the idea of James Scott, because over a period of time, the state, whether it is the central state or whether it is the federal state, enable these autonomous institutions, by interfering them in terms of crippling institutions, managing tribal affairs, and maintaining centralized rule. So therefore, my contention and argument is that autonomy needs to be reimagined, and this reimagination has to come from a more decolonial perspective, by centering people and community with a commitment to universal values of equality, justice, and dignity. So why do I have why am I critical or skeptic about how the evolve how autonomy or autonomous provisions in India, particularly for the tribals? Why am I skeptical about this? Now, primarily because of two reasons. One is the larger issue that why is it that even after 70 years of India's independence, that we continue to see a lot of tribal regions, particularly in the non-scheduled areas, still a lot of unrest and ferment is still there. So therefore, I ask two broad questions. One is, why is autonomy a persisting issue for tribal communities in India? In other words, we can put it as the issue of autonomy remains unsettled. It is never a settled thing. Secondly, it is also time to ask, whether the current model of autonomy, whether it is the sixth schedule or whether it is the non-sixth schedule, are fail to meet the aspiration of the tribes. Or, in other words, do we need to go beyond the existing model of autonomy? So all of us know a little bit, all of us, particularly since, I assume that many of you are from political science background, I don't need to really elaborate on the history of sixth schedule and everything. Our keynote speaker have also talked about it quite extensively. I think, but the fundamental the enactment of sixth schedule was to grant, power to the people. So, but then in terms of its objective and purpose, I see the introduction of sixth schedule or the introduction of sixth schedule or the implementation of sixth schedule in many parts of Northeast India as an integrationist as an integrationist tool, particularly when it comes to integrating tribal areas into the Indian Union. So we have a lot of scholarship around the issue of sixth schedule, particularly by scholars working on different angles. For example, we have Stuli Gross and many others who looks at the evolvement and introduction of sixth schedule. And scholars like Das Gupta, Samada, they looks at the politics of autonomy. And there are scholars like Lasina, and some of my work, I look at the contestations pertaining to the questions of autonomy. So by and large, much of the literature tends to focus on examining the functioning of the sixth schedule, its history, so on and so forth. But from the 1990s onwards, the meaning of autonomy, its purpose seemed to have shifted, and this shift largely comes, from in terms of how the state is reinventing the purpose of sixth schedule. Primarily, my contention is that from the 1990s onwards, particularly in the Northeast India, sixth schedule has been used by the Indian state to manage ethnic conflicts and use it as a tool for bringing about peace and political order in the region. So this is a very helpful typology by Professor Kankan Swanhousing, a political science himself from Hyderabad Central University. So he made these three typologies. The first typology is the homeland state autonomy. The second typology is the decentralized autonomy, and the third typology is the devolutionary autonomy. So the paper is available for anyone to read. So if you look at it, the kind of autonomy that I'm going to talk about essentially pertains to the devolutionary autonomy, that is six district councils in the hill areas of Manipur. Now, the homeland state autonomy and the decentralized autonomy are far more powerful. For example, in the context of Nagaland and Mizoram, the special constitutional provisions and the decentralized autonomy are largely autonomous institutions which are under six scheduled areas. that devolutionary autonomy are a little different, particularly in the context in terms of the kind of powers that they enjoy. And most of these institutions under devolutionary autonomy are under the state law, so which also makes it distinct from any other existing autonomous structure. Now, to quickly run through the context of Manipur, so the Manipur Hill Areas District Council Act was first introduced in the year 1971, and this was also the time Manipur as a state was elevated to a state. Now in Manipur, all of us know that much of the state demography and topography is mostly divided between the hills and the valleys. And the valleys definitely is dominated by the Métis, mostly the Métis. We have also the Métis panels and a lot of migrants, but in the hill areas, it's predominantly inhabited by the Nagas and Kukis and several other tribal communities. So on its introduction in 1971, the first ADAC election was held in 1973. And in 1990, so in a very short span of time, there was always this very, very strong aspiration for higher autonomy. For instance, on independence, when India attained independence, the king of Manipur, constituted a committee to draft a separate constitution for Manipur, and they have drafted it also. Representatives from the hill areas argue that the hill areas should have the right to secede from the state after a span of 5 years, but that particular demand was rejected. So you see that even before 1971, there were always aspirations of autonomy among the tribal communities, and the Nagas in particular have a very, very strong territorial integration movement. But in 1971, so the government of Manipur, showing a commitment, for the tribal communities, come up with this Manipur Hill Areas District Council Act, which is a state law, and the election for it was conducted in 1973. So, but in a span of almost like 15 years, within 15 years, there has been always, demands for the extension of sixth schedule. And this demand, was opposed and rejected, for which, the elections were boycotted, and these autonomous district councils were suspended. The first autonomous district council was suspended in Sardar Hills, and then the last was in Ukrul, the Ukrul ADC, which was suspended in 1990. So the reason was basically non-delegation of specified powers and functions and the absence of financial autonomy. By and large, therefore, tribal communities demanded the extension of sixth schedule in the hill areas of Manipur. So for 20 long years, the ADCs in Manipur were suspended. And again, discussions and talks about reviving the district councils, came up in the early 2000s. And the government of Manipur introduced the Manipur Hill Areas Autonomous District Council Act 2000 by repealing the parent act and inserted for the first time the word autonomous in the act. Secondly, in 2006, another amendment was introduced by repealing the 2000 Act and then bringing back the 1971 Act again. In 2008, a bill known as the Manipur Hill Areas Autonomous District Council Bill was introduced. And this time, it was introduced with a lot of hopes. For example, the number of, and a few minor amendments were made. For example, one of the most significant amendments that was made from the part of the state government was increasing the number of ADC members from 18 to 24, and also expanding the administrative functions of the district councils from 17 to 26. So basically, I have listed some of the few functions that were introduced along with the amendment. Now, in 2011, another fourth amendment was proposed. Fourth amendment was proposed, but the autonomous district councils were made defunct again. In 2015, also another attempt was made to reintroduce the bill, but tribals were again protesting, for which there was 3 years of political violence, particularly in Churchanpur district. And again, the latest is 2020, where the government of Manipur again put the election on hold, and even till today, the district councils in Manipur are non-functional. So by and large, going by this long history, at least 50 years of history, it's evident that the autonomous councils in Manipur have not really served its purpose and intents in terms of administration or in terms of granting any meaningful autonomy to the tribal communities. Now, So how do tribal communities respond to this? So in Manipur, all of us know that there are a lot of. It's a very very complicated. It's a very very complicated and politically very very volatile state. Now its community mostly have armed groups, or they have civil society organizations. They're not actually civil society, but they're ethnic based organizations. Now you have the Nagas, you have the Kukis, you have the Zomis, Mar, Meitei, so on and so forth. All of them, in some sense, are rival groups. So most of the time, we tend to look at Manipur from a non-tribal, tribal, or hill valley kind of binary. But in most cases, in terms of how the politics play out at the ground level, these binaries are not really, really helpful. But one of the most common strategies that have been used for a long period of time was economic blockade. So Manipur is connected, to the other parts of India by two national highway, National Highway 2 and National Highway 37. So this highway passes through the hill districts of Manipur and connects Assam via Nagaland, and we have National Highway 37, which connects Assam and the rest of the country via Silchar. Now, so in the years leading to 2005 to 2015, Manipur has witnessed more than close to 1,000 days of economic blockade. Now, one of the longest was the 93 days economic blockade, which was imposed by the SHDDC, and a counter blockade which was imposed by the United Naga Council, a total of 93 days, and another blockade which was imposed in 2007 by the UNC. So this economic blockade, have further intensive, have further created, a lot of divisions, particularly between the hills and the valleys. Although citizens of the state, irrespective of which community they belong to, are victims to this kind of political strategy. One could potentially, view roadblocks, bans, hurdle, protest, or economic blockade as, a strategic, resistance tool. But in the context of Manipur, it is more about who is controlling the highway, who is controlling the roads in terms of imposing their authority and sovereignty. So now, like I said, Manipur is a very, very complicated state, and it was, and for a long period of time, I have discussed that quite extensively in my book also, that there is this very strong desire on the part of the Mizos and the Kuki Chin group and the Nagas in terms of territorial integration. So till the 1970s and the 1980s, there was also a very strong demand for the integration of the southern part of Manipur to Mizoram, for instance, the idea of Greater Mizoram. So likewise, Nagas also have a very strong idea of territorial integration. Now, what these aspirations of the tribal communities also produce is a counter narrative in terms of, particularly among the Meiteis, that in terms of protecting the unity and territorial integrity of the state of Manipur. So this narrative of protecting the unity and territorial integrity of Manipur is largely, framed as, the territorial boundary of Manipur is something which is primordial and ancient, and therefore, it cannot be changed. So all these, conflicts, the question of autonomy in Manipur is not only about, the extension of the sixth schedule or the current functioning and non-functioning of district councils, but enmeshed in the larger, politics of the state, which goes back, to the early years of independent India. So why do I say that, why do I say that the autonomous district councils or autonomy granted to the tribals, have today ended up in terms of, governing the tribes and not really giving them any form of self-governance, particularly in the context of Manipur. So my contention, therefore, is that what these autonomous district councils in Manipur actually are doing is that it resulted in the expansion of the Manipur state space. Why? Number one, because the autonomy for the tribes, they were only conceived as an institution of administration. So it is not rooted in the idea of equality. It is not rooted in the idea of protecting the rights and interests of the tribal communities. Now, for instance, the entire function of the district council, if one looks at what the district councils of Manipur are supposed to do, it is limited to administration, such as maintenance and management of property, movable and immovable, construction, repair, maintenance of roads, bridges, channels, buildings, so on and so forth. So the district councils of Manipur have no real authority when it comes to the administration of critical issues like forest and land. And since it is established under state law, The district councils are bestowed with limited powers and functions under the pervasive control of the state government. Now, it is because of this that the government can meddle into the affairs of the district council and decide whether or not even to conduct elections. So therefore, in other words, the district councils of Manipur are at the mercy of the ruling state government in state government. But on the other side, it's not only a question about what the state government is doing or what the government of Manipur is doing to the district council. What these district councils also have done is that it ended up in intertribal competition and control. For example, political issues are in the autonomous district councils revolve around dominating council constituencies. And in a state like Manipur, where tribal rivalries run very, very deep. So most tribal communities are competing, whether they are Mar, Paite, Kuki, Thado, Waipe, all of them are competing in terms of having a safe constituency. So therefore, seat sharing and distribution of tickets and constituencies follow tribal lines. Now, what it does, the outcome is that this reinforces tribal ethnic divide and produces tension. And another unintended consequence or intended consequence of district council is that it resulted into a new layers or what I call, a tribal ruling class who sometimes, have no serious commitment towards the welfare and empowerment of tribal themselves. Now, to conclude, so I come back, to what I have said in my introductory remark that autonomy our understanding of autonomy needs to be decolonized because it is no longer about the community. It is no longer centered on the people. So we have to reimagine our idea of autonomy. And some of the ways in which this can be done is that autonomous institutions or tribal autonomy, the conversations, the discussions, the discourse needs to go beyond merely recognizing customary and traditional institutions, because customary and traditional institutions, for example, in the context of Manipur, such as chieftainship, to me only reinforce existing divides and inequalities. So what it does is that ADC politics in Manipur tends to be very, very organizational, very, very tribal and elite driven. Second is that autonomy needs to be reconceived and repurposed as a form of community empowerment. That is, we have to re-strategize strategies of solidarities, not only between tribes, but even with non-tribals. Third is that a people-centric autonomy will entail moving away from rigid notion of tribe-based autonomy, but focus on universal values of rights and justice while politically empowering communities to govern themselves. I'm going to stop here. Thank you so much. I think I've exceeded my time. I'm really sorry for that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Rodapuya, for that stimulating and thought-provoking presentation. I'm sure there's a lot of us who are itching to ask questions and comment, but that we'll have to save it after our next paper, because we have just one paper to go, and after that we can have a discussion time and question and answers. So for our next presenter, we have Dr. Zonun Moya. He's an independent scholar from Guwahati. The title of his paper is The Labyrinth of Constitutional Laws, Tribal Autonomy, and the Dilemmas of National Integration in Northeast India. Dr. Zonuna, ma'am, are you there? Yeah, I think I see you.
Can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Welcome.
I'm audible.
You are audible.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I hope my slides are visible.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Okay, the screen is yours. You may go ahead with the presentation.
Okay. Thank you so much for giving us this wonderful opportunity. And we have already had two interesting papers based on Northeast experiences and the keynote speech as well. So I won't take much time, maybe 5-6 slides. So what I will do is I'll try and reflect upon this, as the title says, the labyrinth of constitutional law or constitution, and with regard to the tribal autonomy and the issues raised by the integrationists from different parts of the country, and if necessary, try and relate the known grievances of Jammu and Kashmir, especially Ladakh. And so I, first of all, I use this notice map deliberately. If you look at the capital of Mizoram, you will see there is a spelling mistake. So I deliberately use this because most of the official notifications that we see and unofficial writings, even Indian posts, they frequently use this spelling, isol, putting W before A. So that is a kind of misrecognition. So, all right. So first of all, I would like us to think or to ponder upon our understanding of constitution or constitutional laws. And we look at constitution as a legal document, supreme law of the land, which cannot be violated, which will guide the general public life. So what I will try and do is to try and theorize our understanding of the Constitution with the existence of a large variety of conflicting moral values and principles. In any society, human beings in a group need a mechanism through which we should be able to reconcile our differences without killing each other or resorting to violence. This led to the birth of a guiding principle in the form of constitution that came out of intense negotiations among various stakeholders. In the case of the framing of the constitution was started in the year 1946, before India got independence, and it was completed in the year 1949, if I remember correctly. It almost took 3 years. And constitution as a political, we also see constitution as a political and legal document which lays down fundamental values and principles based on which any given sovereign nation is governed or supposed to govern. It shapes structure, power, and obligations of government or authority. So apart from those details, the Constitution also takes a normative turn by laying down those fundamental values and principles, what the state ought to be, how the citizens ought to behave. So it takes a normative turn. And why Constitution? And there are lots of debates, whether in US or India, about the decline of constitutional supremacy. And why do we need constitution? We must have thought about why do we need constitution. I'll just give one example. There's one citizen who says rape accused or gang members, or even the accused offender don't deserve the right to trial. And the public officer responds by saying, okay, fine, you are a gang member, come with me, you'll be arrested. The citizen says, no, I'm not. So from this example of conversation between a police and a citizen, I hope you will be able to see the larger issue here. How can you prove it without due process? We can't do that. That's the reason why we need a proper laid down rules, principles, and procedure, and you need everyone to have due process, so you can also have due process. And when I look at the program schedule, I saw some interesting titles. And so I'm not going to in detail about the nitty-gritties of the Sikh schedule or the autonomy movements in Northeast India. So I just want to highlight the kind of contradictions, the possible contradictions and necessary compromise which was made during the framing of the constitution. And as we all know, especially the debate in the Constituent Assembly is available online. And if you look at the debate on the September, if I remember correctly, it was the Sixth Schedule provision was debated on September 7, 8, 9, 3 days. It took 3 days for the Constituent Assembly to make their final decision on this particular issue. And Bordoloy, Nichols Roy, they are very instrumental in convincing the Constituent Assembly to enshrine this Sixth Schedule as a part of the Constitution. And B. Prasad Chaliha and R. K. Chaudhary were quite skeptical about giving me to tribals, which was presumed to move forward in the creation of another tribal style, in their words. It's almost similar to Pakistan, which was born at the same time. And the principles of autonomy or self-determination was seen as a threat to national unity, integration by some members of the Constituent Assembly. However, the advocates of the autonomy for the tribal communities were able to convince the Constituent Assembly and was inserted in the Schedule 6 of the Constitution. And the vision for national integration, especially from the perspective of the Indian state, and autonomy for tribal and other minority communities sometimes creates discomforts among Indian political leaders as well as general public. However, some prominent leaders during the framing of the Constitution were convinced of the fact that unity or national integration does not necessarily mean uniformity. And they also realized the fact that there had to be some kind of trade-off in order to govern a large and diverse population like India by employing various constitutional arrangements like Article 370, 71, and sectional provisions, etc. And there have been multiple attacks on the state autonomy or the special provisions provided to tribal and other minority groups. If you look back the political history in India and the tensions in the censorship and the issue of federalism and the imposition of national emergency in 1971 and the abuse of governor's power. Recently, we had one classic example in Mizoram as well regarding the formation of a new government in the Lai Autonomous District Council, and there seems to be a conflict of ideas between the governor's office and the state government, and that was manifested in the public. And the abrogation of Article 370 in 2019 August. And there has been a strong tendency towards more centralization under the current political dispensation. And there's no denying the fact that there's a shrinking of state powers in different spheres of center-state relationship as well. So this will be my last slide. It's the struggle for autonomy against the spirit of unity or integration. So my last slide will be more of a question for all of us to ponder upon. And what are our vision for this nation after 75 years of independence? So unity as uniformity which is virtually, literally the vision of the present political dispensation that we have in India, or unity in diversity, which was the kind of founding principles that were enshrined in a constitution during the framing of the constitution. And is there a growing intolerance towards those ideals and visions enshrined in the Constitution of India by the founding fathers to accommodate tribal communities and other minority groups? And why do we always use the pretext of, or the excuse of, national security or interest to subjugate and suppress aspirations for more autonomy among communities in the frontier regions? For example, the recent Ladakh movement and the CAA and the FCAA recently in the case of Mizoram. I just want to take forward two examples that are given here. First, the Ladakh movement. It's very interesting to see how this Ladakh issue pan out. And the leader of this Ladakh movement, Sonam Wangchuk, is still under custody under National Security Act, which is a very draconian act. And he is sort of demonized as anti-national, a threat to national security because of his demands for more autonomy, especially the demand for sexual and statehood, which was basically the promise of the ruling political regime during the abrogation of Article 370 in the month of August 2019. So the peaceful protest has become criminal offense, it seems. And the FCAA, the recent Mizoram Assembly resolution on FCAA, there are lots of debates about the tribal autonomy and the capitulation of the state powers to the central government. And there are different viewpoints and opinions, but at the same time, I think there is a common thread in all those events and movements. That is, there has been apprehension among different sections of the society in the country about the shrinking space or democratic space for struggle for more autonomy in the face of a growing centralized tendency among the political authority. Okay, that's all for my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zonang. That was a very well researched, and I think now a lot of us are, prepping ourselves to ask questions. So now we will move on to the discussion section, and I will now invite our discussant, Dr. Zoram Thanga, Associate Professor, Government J. Thantima College, to share his remarks and critical reflections, if any, on the papers presented. And sir, if you can, then I may ask you to lead the question and answer session as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Dr. Pinky Rosary Thangi, and good afternoon, everyone. I am Zoram Thanga, currently working at Government J. Thantima College as Associate Professor in the Department of Political Science. At the outset, I feel obligated to express my gratitude to Mizoram State Legal Services Authority, Mizoram Political Science Association, and the Department of Political Science, Government J. Thantima College, for having me as discussant in this international conference. However, With my numerous limitations and skills in facilitating scholarly discourse, I doubt my capacity to initiate discussions on the paper, which provided deep insights and very thought provocative. Therefore, I kindly make an appeal to all participants to provide observations and comments on the papers to make this conference academically illuminating, valuable, and practical as well. I would like to congratulate the paper presenters, Dr. P. Lopez Louis from Nagaland, Dr. Rolo Puya, uh, and Dr. Zolan Moya for the thought provocative and insightful presentation. Uh, Even though Dr. Anuj Kumar is not here, I believe that his his speech was very insightful and very thought-provocative presentation speech on the role of law as a tool of empowerment in the indigenous struggles in the Northeast region of India. It's a timely and important topic that I believe bridges political theory, legal sociology, and as well as the questions of identity and statehood. Uh, Let me then go on straight to the paper presented. The first paper presenter was Dr. Lalpet Louis on the title Between State and Tribe, the MABC Sixth Schedule Amendment within Mizoram's Shifting Political Dynamics. Thank you, Dr. Petru, again, for the insightful and well-structured presentation. Your paper offers an important contribution to our understanding of the Sixth Schedule, both as a constitutional safeguard and a dynamic political instruments that continues to evolve in the Northeast India's political landscape. What I particularly appreciate is how you argue that the Sixth Schedule Amendment represents not just a legal reform, but a renegotiation of power between state and tribe. I think that was quite compelling as well as analytically sharp. Uh, there are a few reflections, or rather, just two or three questions which I have in mind listening to your presentation. Madam, you speak about how BJP came to power in the Autonomous District Council of Mara. And you spoke on how Christians open electoral space for the Hindutva agenda. It may not be the exact word which you've been using, but I somehow summarize it like that to my understanding. How do you perceive faith play in the electoral dynamics of the region? Is it Christianity against other religion, or is it community factors or feeling or identity politics? You mentioned faith, Christianity. So, what role do you perceive Christianity to play in this part of the state? Now, the BJP came to power. What comes to my mind is what would be the reason behind the rise of BJP? Madam, you mentioned that Rajnath Singh came and spoke many things, or gave generous promises to the people over there. Is that the only reason was what was in my mind? Are there any reason uh, to your knowledge and from your understanding that compels or attract the people to support the BJP in that part? And lastly, your title mentions uh, sixth schedule amendment. Uh, uh, what are what would be the major aspect of that amendment that will be relevant to the state, and how have the state uh, responded to the amendment? So those are a few queries or questions, if I may say, that I place before you. If you would kindly comment, I will be very happy. In conclusion, your paper elegantly demonstrates how autonomy arrangements remain a living and negotiable framework. It shows that the sixth schedule is not static, it's continually interpreted through political practice. I really comment on your efforts in writing this valuable paper. Thank you so much. Uh, Dr. Rolopuya, Associate Professor, uh, thank you so much for the compelling and thought-provoking presentation again. Your title was Tribal Autonomy in India, Self-Rule or Ruling the Tribe. Your paper raises a crucial questions that sits with the heart of India's constitution, whether autonomy for tribal region means self-rule or it sometimes evolves into a structure of internal domination. The word that you are using, ruling, means the sentence or the term ruling the tribe. It really captures the contradictions within a centralized governance. Uh, I would like to again give just two or three questions to you regarding your paper, and feel free to give further comments or not. Now, with regards to your title, Tribal Autonomy in India, you have mainly focused on the state of Manipur. I was wondering whether Manipur is the most relevant for the uh, topic, self-rule or ruling the tribe. What about the other states? So that is what I was thinking when I was uh, listening to your presentation. You have also mentioned that Manipur District Council has not fully fulfilled the expected work. You have mentioned some points, yes, that the state government have been overshadowing the administration of the district council. In that case, it's definitely unfulfilling for the people. Now, what I was thinking was how has the people or the population of the ABC region react to their status and position under the state, legally or through community actions? How have they challenge or negotiate with the state government? And my third point that I would like to mention as a you may take it as a form of question if you would like to comment, is about the need for greater participatory mechanism. If we find that the sixth schedule has a number of flaws and shortcomings, in that scenario, can you suggest any participatory mechanism that will be more comprehensive and bigger in dimensions in terms of authority, in terms of administration, and in terms of influence, such as, say, a village assembly or a customary council? Overall, sir, your paper makes a vital contribution to understanding economy not as an endpoint, but as an evolving process, a space of negotiation between empowerment and control. It, I think, challenges us to rethink whether decentralization guarantees justice or whether politics of who governs, remain the real question. Thank you for your thoughtful presentation. I look forward to your reflection. Last but not the least, Dr. Zolan Moya, with his title, The Labyrinth of Constitutional Laws, Tribal Autonomy and Dilemmas of National Integration in Northeast India. Thank you for the exceptionally well-researched and intellectually rich presentation. I think your paper addresses one of the most enduring tensions in India's political landscape, the balance between autonomy and national integration within the constitutional framework. Let me again to make my time here lesser with a few queries. Again, feel free to comment or not to comment. Now, in the northeastern region, do you feel that law makes the people feel empowered or alienating from the mainstream India? Do you feel that law is empowering or alienating? You also spoke about the shrinking state powers. It may be very theoretical, like it may be also very practical. So can you give some instances of how the state power have shrunk, given the fact that there are three lists, as we know, the concurrent, state list and union list. Residuary power belongs to the state, belongs to the union government. Now, in that scenario, how has the union government asserted their its power upon the state government? So if just one or two instances can be cited, that will quite suffice. You spoke about how there are instances of intolerance on ideas and visions of the Constitution against tribal and minorities. Again, within the constitutional framework, apart from what you have mentioned, can you give one or two instances of how these intolerances have crept up and how they have been implemented by the or enforced by the union government? Your paper offers, I think, an insightful critique of the Constitution in plural societies. And that integration is not a final achievement, but a continuing conversation. Thank you so much for the sparkling and a rich and necessary discussion on the politics of autonomy and the meaning of integration in India's democracy. I shall invite from uh, Dr. Lalpet Hui
Sir,
yes.
I would like to interrupt here. I think Dr. Rolapuya has something to do. So if he's there, if you can invite him first to answer, I mean, that would be nice. I mean, that's a request from him. So
Okay, fine. He has already made a valuable contribution, and we are at the apex of that contribution. We will invite Dr. Rolapuya to give comments and remarks, and then, if he still has time, we shall open a short time for discussion with him personally. It's a pleasure, and my absolute pleasure, to invite Dr. Rolapuya.
Thank you so much, sir, for your very incisive and critical comments, and also for appreciating it, because the idea is an idea is still an idea until you publish it. So, this is still an idea in many ways, and a thought in progress. So I think. Uh, I'm really thankful to you for your patience in terms of listening to not only to my paper but to all of us. So to start with the first question, you are very right in terms of saying that in the context of Manipur, the autonomous district councils, operate more in line with governing the tribes rather than providing any meaningful autonomy. So, and Manipur, yes, it's very, very suitable to make that kind of argument. But I think this argument also probably more or less apply to in the context of many non-scheduled regions in the Northeast. For example, in many parts of Assam, and also in some parts of Arunachal Pradesh, so on and so forth. But even in the context of six scheduled areas also, I think that what has happened over a period of time, particularly, is that the institutions of autonomous district councils, there is a danger that we are reducing them to another layer of governance. And this is not to dismiss, their importance or their role in terms of enabling minority tribal communities, such as in Mizoram. But in most cases, they seem to have deviated from their actual purpose and reproducing what many scholars refer to as the grammar of mainstream politics. So basically, we are not getting any form of distinct autonomous politics, but it is reproducing the same kind of the grammar of Indian politics within autonomous councils themselves. So we have intertribal politics, we have inter-party competition, so on and so forth. So, and why I'm saying this is also that autonomous district councils are political institutions and they are to be politicized. But the nature of their politicization also very much depend on what the central state or the state government thinks it is permissible. So it is always limited, by what the central state or what the ruling government in the center or the state thinks that the tribals should be granted with. So, and currently, I also think that, in the name of decentralization, there are also attempt and effort to institute a political systems, particularly in many tribal areas today, in terms of, say, panchayat extension. So, panchayat extension in many areas, in tribal areas, I think, when the communities are already having something, it's not to celebrate the idea of the community or institutions which are already there, but then bringing in an alien institution in tribal areas, I think that is also a kind of ruling a tribe, an attempt to rule the tribe, because imposing mainstream political institutions drawing from the more dominant parts of the country. So I think in the Northeast, there are attempts to, for instance, extend panchayats, kind of institutions. So we have, for example, Gram Sabha. In a Mizo context, it doesn't appeal to us. It doesn't appeal to me. That is what I'm saying. It doesn't appeal to me because the grammar of Mizo politics, I think, is rooted very, very differently. So when you are imposing this kind of vocabularies, political vocabularies, then I think that it's not about granting any form of autonomy, but it's rather imposing what is being prescribed by the dominant groups. That is one. So in the second in the second query, so it's about people response. So from 1998 to 2000, for almost like 20 years, district councils in Manipur were defunct. There was total suspension because people not only protest for the extension of sixth schedule, but they rejected, the district councils. There is saying that there is no real power, there is no meaningful autonomy in the district council. So why do we even have it? And then much of the complexities in Manipur also have to do with the reluctance of the state government to grant any kind of meaningful autonomy to the tribal communities. When you have, a population on your state, which is about 35% constituted by tribal communities and who are living in 90% of the state geographical area, but you manage to control them and you don't want them to provide a meaningful autonomy, it means that they are going to talk about territorial integration with Nagas, territorial integration with Greater Mizoram, so on and so forth. So it is by and large all of this political violence, political chaos that we see in Manipur, I think, is also an outcome of this very, very long history of injustice which is being meted out to the tribals in the state. So until and unless these acts of injustice are being corrected, I think Manipur is still going to be what Subir Bhowmik called a troubled periphery. And even as we speak today, Manipur is still in, Manipur is still at a very, very difficult state. There are ongoing political violence. And much of this political violence could have been avoided if, for instance, the tribes in Manipur have some kind of autonomy when it comes to land, when it comes to forests, when it comes to managing their own affairs. So there has to be a kind of political guarantee in terms of, assuring them that their rights, their identities, will be respected and recognized. I think, unfortunately, that has not happened in the state of Manipur. So, for example, I don't know which year exactly, but there was a subcommittee constituted by the government of Manipur to look into how the district council laws can be amended. Now, among the members constituted by the government of Manipur, there was no tribals. That is, how irony that is, when you are talking about amending a law which is meant for the tribals, but you have zero tribal representation. So that is, something which is, it's a very naked display of, political dominance, by the non-tribals. So, but I think, politics is always, ongoing. So I hope that definitely in the future, there will be a more, amicable political solutions. But as of now, I think that, this discontent and anger in the state of Manipur has been there all the time, at least, for the last, 60 to 70 years. And all communities in the state, have one or more reasons, to be angry about. And I think much of their anger and resentments, is also quite justified. So I'm going to stop here. Again, thank you so much for your questions. I think you are very kind and very soft to it, but I truly appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Hello, hi. Can I say a few words, a comment or question? I'm Maria, Dr. Maria from United States.
Okay.
Hi, thank you for hosting this event. It's really interesting. I have been privileged to attend it. I'll just do a brief introduction about myself. I'm here at the Washington, D.C. I have been a professor at Dell University and St. Joseph University. I did my PhD from JNU. I would like to make one question to the resource persons here is that how do we transcend this ethnic identity and its politics? It's more like how do we look into the area of progress, sans the ethnic identity politics. That's my question number one, is that because if you look at the example, I know each region is different and there is no way of clubbing them together or bringing about compromising one for the other. But in Mizoram, we have the unparalleled record of maintenance and sustenance of peace. So in case of Manipur, that is not the reason. So in Mizoram, we would not revert back to being a conflict area in this post conflict transitional state. But in case of Manipur, we have the long period of discord or disparity between one tribe to another. So in this context, especially to do with Manipur and giving Mizoram as an example, but there can be various criteria for it's not being different or it's not being the same. But in the larger scheme of things, when you talk about autonomy, it's not just about, that we know that self-determination is not an absolute right. Even with the Indian constitution, it has to be in consonance and in consultations with the existing tribes so that there would be the pursuit of larger interests for various communities, for various ethnicities. So my question here is that how about we look at the progress growth of each tribe and try to do something for each tribe in terms of, in today's world, it's a popular culture referring to technological development. So this is my specialization. So in this context, how I merge academic research into technological research. So in this context, my question comes from, how about in case of Manipur, we try to impact these differences through various innovations, through various, trying to grasp the recent trend, the popular culture, and, just not look at, how do I say, identity conflicts. Is there a prospect or potential for such initiatives where you can curb these differences and look at ways of improving sustenance and coexistence? I would just give you a few examples. Like in many countries, there is the different ethnicities are present, but on the terms and in the name of progress and development, people come together and put away their differences, put away their identities, because so long as we delve too much on identities, there can never be growth. So my question is in this perspective, the narratives and the counter narratives. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. All the way from United States. Thank you so much. If Dr. Apuya is still here, okay, you may have your time.
Okay. Thank you, sir, again for the opportunity. Let me call her Umaria because we have met. So look, let me make it less formal. Your question is too difficult for me to respond, and to be honest, I don't know what is the solution. But I think there are some pointers, when you are elaborating on some examples. So, but I will start with my own take. Number one is that this scholar Sajad Hassan has, I think many people don't like it, but I like his work, where he make a comparative study between Manipur and Mizoram, and where he try to outline why Mizoram, emerges as what it is today, and why Manipur is, in its current condition. So one of the argument that Sajad Hassan has made is that in Mizoram there are two things which are very important. One is the inclusive ethnic identity formation, and second is that the legitimacy of the state. In Mizoram, the state is legitimate. And secondly, the inclusive Mizo identity formation, of course, all of us, most of us here are Mizos. So we know that, there are issues there. But still, Mizo identity formation is quite inclusive in many ways in terms of, its accommodative spirit. And identities, are never an end product, right? It's always, in the making. So we have thousands of debates. I have thousands of debates with my co-panelists, Zono and all about these issues. We have a lot of differences also. But still, I think, and in the context of Manipur, what Sadat Hassan is saying is that that kind of inclusive identity formation did not take place in Manipur. So, for example, among the Métis, among the Nagas, among the Kukis, the kind of identity consciousness, that was there was never happening in the way it happened in the state of Mizoram. And I think that is very fundamental for me. And second part, I think the legitimacy of the state in Manipur, the state has a very, very weak legitimacy. I think whereas in the state of Mizoram, the state has a very, very strong legitimacy. I think people believe in the state. People believe in the state. People believe in the government. I think in Manipur, I think people want to be part of the state. They see the state, as an institution to extract from. I think that perception and idea of the state in Manipur is very different. So Sajad Hassan book, I think, is very important, in terms of trying to explain. And for academicians, it is more easy to try to understand, why this is happening than rather give a solution. So I think the second part to further, take what Sajad Hassan is saying is what I think the political scientists, that I have quoted in my presentation, what Professor Kamkan on housing have said, that the recognition of tribes, the recognition of these different communities in Manipur, and giving them, separate recognition as a tribe, as a scheduled tribe. I think what it has done is that, it instituted, what he calls, borrowing from Sigmund Freud idea, narcissism of minor differences. So I think that is what happened in Yugoslavia also. That, when this fellow Michael Ignatieff asks, what is the difference between a Serb and a Bosnian? They are saying that, both of us are different, but you look at us, the way we smoke cigarette is different. You can make a distinction between a Serb and a Bosnian. So in Manipur also, I think, we are more concerned about differences. And these differences, is not only about Naga, Kuki, and Meitei. These differences are articulated, along clan and tribal lines. And over a period of time, many former clans are elevated to the status of a tribe. So there is this, very fluid boundaries between what is a tribe, what is a clan, because many communities in Manipur over a period of time have been granted separate tribal recognition. And I think what it does is that, it has reproduced, that kind of intertribal divide. So that is, what Professor Swan has argued. I think I'm just borrowing from scholars. So, from my own point of view, I think what is required is also that, we need to. I think the whole idea of this is recorded. So I think what is needed is that, we need to reimagine, a different Manipur today, in a sense that, that reimagination would require us to go beyond existing political discourse and existing political arrangement. For example, that is why I advocate that is it that the sixth schedule and the non-sixth schedule areas, require a new model of autonomy. So I think that is something that one needs to, for us, that is something that I think may be fruitful to ponder. Because even in Manipur today, if you grant sixth schedule to, say, Chulsanpur district, it's already a divided district between, Kuki, Zomi, and Mar on the one side. So therefore, how far that granting sixth schedule even to the tribal areas in Manipur is a big question, because divisions are already very, very deep. To come out of that, so that is where I think I think there is an urgent need, to reimagine, politics, to reimagine, institutions, in pertaining to institutions that are meant, to grant some kind of autonomy. So for that, I think we have to go back to the community and ensure that, the community is involved and made part of the entire political process. So I'll stop here. So I think I've said enough. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
If you can still be available, sir, we'll just take one more question or query or comments from the participants.
Yes.
It's open. Wapuya will be able to, I hope, spare some time, but let us try to make it brief. Anyone?
Joram, can I come in?
Yes, sir.
This
Yes,
is
sir.
SK.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Welcome.
Yeah, I really enjoy the discussion, particularly Roropuya and the Zonun. What comes in my mind is basically when Puya talks about the uh, autonomy, a kind of redefining the autonomy, the idea of autonomy. So when I look from the Mizoram perspective, there are some academicians among the Mizos who thinks that Mizoram doesn't require sixth schedule anymore. It is dividing among us. There are some people who are arguing, not very openly, but if you talk person to person, then people told me that there are some few academicians, some professors told me that if we look closely, we don't need sixth schedule anymore. So I asked to them, why you are saying that you don't need sixth schedule? There are some people who said we need sixth schedule in the whole state. There are also who are saying we don't need because it divides. Particularly if you look at the Mara Lai issue, this thing, there are people who think, and then Mar is also demanding the Singlung autonomous. This also they're also demanding the sixth schedule. So there are people rather we don't need anymore. So do we need to redefine the whole idea of autonomy? Particularly, autonomy should be looked only from the prism or the lens of ethnicity, order to protect and promote the ethnic identity anymore. Rather, we need from the development perspective. Can we define autonomy from the development perspective? This is one of the questions which pondered me for quite some time. So I just want to take the opinion of Roro Puya. How does he look at this kind of a issue, particularly from the Mizoram context? But if you look at the stability of the this thing, the sixth schedule also. So, for example, all the sixth schedule, if you look at the stability from 1972 till today, when I look at the stability, the average comes in around 2 years. 2 and 2 months like when I look at. If you look at the lie right now, in the last 5 years, they already have 5 governments with a break of around governor roots of around 1.5 months, 39 days, something like that. So there are people who said it doesn't make any sense because there's no development at all. So these are some of the issues coming up. These are some of the debate going on. So what is his opinion? I just want to hear from him. But I really like the way he come up the whole the presentation and the talk. Congratulations to him once more. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Roropuya.
Thank you again, sir, and thank you to Professor Yangbam for staying online and listening patiently to some very immature ideas. So, I mean, again, it's a very difficult response to give. But I will make a few attempts in terms of what I am thinking. So what and I think that's I think you rightly pointed out the kind of political instability plaguing the autonomous councils, whether not only in the context of Manipur but particularly in the context of Lai areas as well. But contrary to what I have said for my earlier response, I will take a different route now. So I think this is also, according to me, what makes it very, very difficult. Is that I think there has to be flexibility. There has to be more flexibility in terms of what kind of autonomy provisions is to be provided. because I think the one size model in terms of say six schedule, I think that model cannot work everywhere, because that will not guarantee equal participation for any tribal communities. So I don't know how, for example, how many non Khasi, Jaindia, Garo will feel, say, in the context of Meghalaya. So therefore, I wanted to stretch this idea of autonomy beyond thinking beyond a very very tribe centered or ethnic centered. But at the same time, I would say that of course the issue of development is very very pertinent in terms of articulating aspirations for autonomy. But there is also still a danger to that, in a sense that in many ways the state can transcend existing autonomy provisions. So I think it is in that kind of context that I think it is really important to think about how far the autonomy provisions that are granted to the tribes are actually guaranteeing them rights when it comes to the most important questions. Now, for example, today I saw this news that there are attempts to exploit the groundwater in Longklai, in Lai Autonomous Area. Now, how the question therefore is that how far the six schedule provisions in Lai Autonomous Council will guarantee protection. I think that is the question. So therefore, I think in this context, I think in the context of development, it is not only a question about about the specific communities, the specific tribe or region, but I think it raised a far more pertinent questions, until and unless we reframe our idea of development also, in terms of which tends to be going towards a very very extractivist kind of development model that we are pursuing. I think that kind of development model anyway will not work. So to me, I think at the end of the day, whether we are thinking about autonomy provisions, whether we are thinking about development, I think it needs to be something that has to be citizen centered. It has to be people centered. So until and unless that happen, I think we can keep on talking about development discourse, this and that. But at the end of the day, what it ends up often is that it just reproduces inequalities. And unfortunately, these inequalities in the Northeast, whether it is in Mizoram or Manipur, are articulated differently. And to your comment about the Mizoram context, I think there are far more eligible scholars here to comment on that. So I will refrain myself from making a comment on the Mizoram discourse as such. Anyway, thank you so much, sir, for your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Lopuya, for the insightful response. The time is 8:58 by my watch, and well, it's a foretaste of what's coming tomorrow. And we have two more papers to discuss. I appeal all the participants to be active in the discussion and to be patient. Let us all close tonight's seminar conference together. We will invite Dr. Peggy and Dr. Roman Moya to give response, and after that, we will open the floor for further discussion. I invite Dr. Lalpe Tui.
Am I audible?
Yes, definitely.
Yes. First of all, thank you so much, sir, for your insightful observations as well as your generosity in commenting my paper. And I would like to apologize a little bit because my paper could not be very theoretical. But having said that, come straight to the question that you have raised. So coming to the first questions, in this paper, I am trying to highlight how a political party like BJP that was once confined only to the quote-unquote cow belt and the state where Hindi is the primary language able to emerge in a Christian tribal dominated region. And we all know that BJP as a party, although it was in power at the center in 1996 or maybe in 1998 to 2004, it could never enter or it could never expand its horizon in an area like or in a state like Mizoram because of its Hindutva policy. But in recent years, if we observe that the BJP has also become one of the dominant players in the electoral politics in the state of Mizoram. So because here there is a strategic shift in its approach. And what do I mean by the strategic shift in approach? So even there is a recognition among the BJP leaders that their Hindutva ideology hardly appealed the Christian minority. So from there, they move beyond the Hindutva ideology to a regional adaptation. So, and it has become more flexible. They have become more flexible in their approach. So instead of focusing on the religious nationalism, they have their focus also shift towards development, maybe development in terms of economic progress. So that it has become not about the faith or Christianity anymore, but it was more about economic progress or maybe trying to appeal the Christian minority using the welfare schemes or maybe policies, etc., etc. And coming into the second questions, apart from the Rajnath Singh speech at the rally in 2018 elections, there are various factors that led or that contribute to the emergence of BJP in Marath Autonomous District Council area. And one reason would be the merger of Marath Democratic Front, MDF, that has a stronghold sentiment in the mind and the heart of the Marath populations with BJP in 2017. And in addition to that, the Indian National Congress, the INC, it also merged the INC-led government at MADC. It also merged along with the BJP in 2019. And here, this merging of INC-led government in 2019 is quite critical for the emergence of BJP in Marath inhabited area because most of the executive or the political leaders that we have at the time, they are all a veteran politicians who have a strong supporter at the village or at the grassroots level. And at the same time, in addition to the 2 points that I have mentioned, the BJP, they were also quite successful in appealing the minorities through policies or maybe scheme or selling the political agenda of the amendment to the sixth schedule of the constitutions. And at the same time, they have also successfully portrayed themselves that they are quite secular in the sense that, like, for instance, whenever there is an elections at the Autonomous Council, they will send a star campaigner like John Berla, for instance, who is also a tribal Christians. And even in the Dampa by-elections, they have also sent a minority a tribal minister at the center, namely Kiran Rijiju, who held the post of minority affairs. And at the same time, yes, coming into the third questions, I will not take much time because it's already 9. And coming into the aspect of the Sixth Schedule Amendment, the first aspect is direct funding. And what do we mean by the direct funding here? If we look at the political context or scenario, or when it comes to the Sixth Schedule provisions, all the fundings or maybe the centrally sponsored schemes that comes from the center, it has to pass through the state government. And in recent, there used to be instances where the funds that come from the center used to be withheld by the government. So in that context, the Autonomous District Council, precisely MADC, have direct funding as one of its aspects when it comes to the Sixth Schedule Amendment that says that funds that come from the center should be given to the Autonomous District Council without being withheld by the state government. And secondly, there is also a provision to increase the number of the seats from 25 to 34. And lastly, or third, the term autonomous territorial council itself substitute the prevailing name, that is autonomous district council, and they should have more power to make laws when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to educations, or maybe including vocational training or college educations, town planning, etc., etc. And the reason why they have included or why they ask for more power in the sphere of agriculture, educations, etc. It's because that although we say that the six schedule provisions have, under the six schedule provisions, the autonomous district council have the power to make law, but even saying that, their power is quite limited. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Am
Thank
I
you
audible?
for, yes, thank you for your precise response. I will now invite Dr. Zoman Moya, after which the time will be open for further discussion. Dr. Zoman Moya, please.
Okay. Hello. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for your kind and critical interjections. And first of all, in your first question, if I remember correctly, you talk about do you feel that people in Northeast India empowered? I think there is no simple answer for this, but okay, let me put it this way. Maybe there can be two main ways of looking at this issue. And firstly, or maybe three. Firstly, we generally tend to see law as some kind of neutral arbiter to resolve human conflicts, or sometimes as a punitive mechanism to regulate human actions or human relationships. And on the perception of the empowering or alienating force, I think there are some laws like the right to food, the right to information act, and those acts, of course, empower people across the country, including the community. Hello? Okay.
Hello, yes, yes.
So sorry. Okay. All right. First of all, there are laws which are empowering. I think people feel empowered when they look at laws like the Right to Information Act, the right to food, and all those acts which are very important instrument for the empowerment or emancipation of the general public. At the same time, there are different kinds of laws like the Armed Forces Special Powers Act and the Disturbed Area Act and even the Forest Conservation Amendment Act, even though there is no consensus on this particular issue, which people find very alienating, draconian, brutal. And they feel very helpless when they encounter those laws, when they encounter the consequences of those laws and acts. So I think it could be, there can be two ways of looking at this particular issue. And on the issue of the shrinking of state power, and you were asking about some, maybe two examples. I think one classic example could be the shrinking of fiscal space for the state. We all know that the introduction of the goods and services tax in 2017, which is quite amazing in principle, but which limits the capacity of different states of India to levy tax on from different sources, and which sort of uh, centralized or formalized unified taxation system where the central governments got the lion's share and delayed the devolution of state shares as long as possible, especially the by opposition parties. That has been the trend over the past 10 years. If you look at some states like uh, West Bengal, which has been under Trinamool Congress over the past few years, and they are not even getting funds for National Rural Employment Guarantee schemes because of their principal opposition to the central authoritarian tendency. And another important trend on this particular aspect is the intention of the union government to introduce one nation, one election. We have already had one nation, one election in 1950-51. There was simultaneous elections. But some states' governments were dissolved because they were not able to secure majority, confidence of majority of their legislators in between. So they had to dissolve. So considering all those historical incidents, I think the intention or the plan, the proposal to impose one nation, one election is also a very alarming issues with regard to the shrinking of states' power and autonomy. And regarding the third question on how intolerance or the issue of intolerance emerge, especially how the union government is responsible. I think I had given two examples in my presentation. One was the abrogation of Article 370, and which was sort of approved by even the Supreme Court, but there are quite a number of people, so many people, even among the legal fraternity, who firmly believe that the abrogation of Article 370 was a misuse or abuse of power, simply because they did not follow the procedural, the due process laid down by the Constitution itself. Because in the Constitution, under Article 370, it was clearly written that in consultation with the Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir. But the government during that time dissolved the state government using a president's rule and capture and arrest all prominent political leaders and abrogate the Article 370 without following a due process of law, which is established in the Constitution. I think that is a classic example. And the second example could be the FCAA. I think we don't need to expand on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will open the session for discussion, queries, reflections, and observations. Let us try to make it brief, but let us take full use of this to expand in our knowledge and explore new areas. So I shall now open the session for discussion, but let us name the person to whom our queries or comments are addressed to. Please, anyone. The floor is now open.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
May I raise one question? Myself, Peter Pauginpu from Department of Political Science, Mizoram University.
Most welcome. Take
I
your
want
time.
to ask to Miss the second presenter, Larpik Louis. The first question I want to ask her is that she mentioned that BJP has less entry or its existence in Mizoram in general, but in particular, she said that the BJP are able to make its entry in minority communities like Maras. Then are the BJPs not able to make their existence in other communities like Chakma or Lai or other communities in Mizoram? Then the second question is, why are the BJPs able to make their entry only on those minority communities? Why not majority Mizo voters? And the third one is that how does she see the future of BJP in Mizoram? Because some people term the BJP as Vi party. Then Congress is also a Vi party, and I hope that the BJP in the future also might make their big role in Mizoram like the Congress does. So these are the three questions I want to ask her. Thank you.
If Dr.
Yes.
Peggy is here,
Yes. Yeah. So
please.
take up the questions.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yes. Thank you so much for your questions. So coming into the first questions, I would like to say that the BJP, now the rule of the BJP is not only confined to Mara Autonomous District Council anymore. If we look at the present government at LADC, Lai Autonomous District Council, if I'm not mistaken, last month, they have formed a BJP MNF coalition government, right? And not only that, even in the case or in the context of Chakma Autonomous District Council, on 4th February 2025, the first BJP ruled government was also formed in Chakma Autonomous District Council. But although the BJP was voted out after the head was moved from using the no confidence motions, right? And then that's why the expansions of BJP is not only confined to Mara Autonomous District Council, but it has expanded to other autonomous district council. For instance, Lai Autonomous District Council as well as the CADC, Chakma Autonomous District Councils. And here, the reason why the BJP could expand its horizon in the minority tribally inhabited area, because in recent year, if we look at the way how BJP has also approached the minority, there is a change in their strategic approach, because BJP, we usually understood or maybe equated BJP as having Hindutva as its ideology. But now they are shifting. They are shifting their approach using the regional adaptations. They are using regional adaptations, and then they have become more flexible in their approach. And instead of emphasizing on the religious nationalism, they have focused more on the developmental issues or maybe economic progress, etc. And coming into the third questions, I think the second question which I have answered have also answered to your third one, I believe so.
Yes, the second one is that why are the Mizo voters, the majoritarians, not going for the BJP?
I think so. There is still that the understanding or the narrative or understanding that like as you have said, the BJP is still a Vi or maybe outsiders party, right? But having said that, if we look at this, the upcoming Dampa by-elections, I think that has also like in a way that it also changed the political discourses on how we see BJP, even in the context of Mizoram, not only confining to Mara or maybe autonomous district council, because now the BJP has selling the ideas or maybe the agenda of from Dampa to Delhi, Delhi to Dampa, and then that have also shown the way how BJP has expanded its horizon from the southern corner to the northern corner of Mizoram. And
Okay.
about the future of BJP, since I'm not an astrologer, but I could not really predict about the futures of BJP. But now the BJP has become one of the dominant players in the electoral politics in the context of Mizoram. Because earlier, when we look at the political scenario in Mizoram, whenever election happen, it is always a tussle between two parties that are INC and MNF. Now we have other parties like ZPM as well as the emergence of BJP. Okay, yes. I hope I answer your
Yes,
questions.
yes. Thank you so much.
Pujara, can I just
Yes,
say a
yes.
few words?
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Take your time, sir.
Okay. Thank you. It's a wonderful paper from Ms. Lalpik Louis also. Let me say a few things regarding this direct funding. Direct funding, the idea of direct funding is wonderful, but is it possible under this particular constitution without amending the constitution? To my understanding, the direct funding is not possible as per the provisions right now. Unless some of the provisions in the constitution are amended, direct funding is not going to happen in all the autonomous council, not only in Mizoram. It's not going to happen. These are all political kind of a slogan. This is the ultimate kind of a dream. But it's not going to happen so soon, because until the central government have to agree with it, and then they have to come up, it cannot be done only one autonomous council or one state, have to be go along with other states. That includes like Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, all these things have to come in. So this is one thing. Another thing is when it comes to the question from Peter, this BJP thing, see, BJP and the Congress formed government in Chakma Autonomous Council in 2018. This is the first government in the country aligned the two traditional rival in Delhi, which all the political pundit never even think of. Nobody even dream of. I don't think even the people in the Congress here in Mizoram also, because autonomous councils sometimes they act and behave in the way they wish. Sometimes they are not even at that point of time also. There are many people who said the Congress party in Aizawl doesn't approve of the government formed with BJP. There are many like newspapers reports on it. So it's very difficult to talk about this. Even see how they emanate in the Congress form government in the Autonomous Council. Can you imagine a Congress and MNF come together in the Aizawl, but they go together in the Autonomous Council? So the politics of Autonomous Council are very, very different. If you look very closely, if you follow very closely, it's very different. That's why I think I always say the Autonomous Council sometimes is contradictory with the state government. So, for example, if the Autonomous Council goes strictly with the rule, and then if they want to say, for example, if they want to like impose, or if they want to introduce the mother tongue of Chakma, Lai, and Amara strictly in the Autonomous Council. But if you look at the state government provision, if you don't speak, or if you don't have a proper knowledge of the Tulians, you are not eligible to apply in the state government service. So they're contradictory on it. You cannot like strictly follow certain things. That is why some people are saying like we don't need autonomous council because of this. because of this. But if you look at the Lai Autonomous Council, how many people speak Lai now? I'm told that only 4 to 7 villages speak Lai in their own as a lingua franca at home. I'm told that 4 to 7 only probably they're saying. Maximum 7, they said. 4 is they're speaking very fluently, but up to an extent around 7 villages are still a kind of lingua franca. But the rest of the people speak only Tulen language. So Lai is many of you must be aware of. Even in the proceeding of the Lai Autonomous Council, they were written in the Mizo tongue only before. Now they want to write, but many of them doesn't know Lai. So it's a kind of a very, we talk something else, but in the ground, whether it is really, really possible to implement it. That is the thing we have to look at also. So these are some of my just thought comes in my mind. I don't know whether it's relevant or not, just I want to share with you all. Thank you, Pujaram. Thank you very much.
Any more questions or observation to express?
Uzoram,
Yes.
this is Eng from
Okay.
ICFI.
Okay. Most
I would just,
welcome.
I would just like to interact with Dr. Zonuna. If he feels that, I think if times permit, he can simply, make give me the answer, or if he doesn't feel, it's still fine to me. So, Dr. Zonuna, your paper, I found it very, very interesting, even though I'm not fully agree with it, but I found it still very, very interesting. Um, the last slide mentioned that is autonomy against unity or integration. You were using the word unity and integration, whether if autonomy is against integrity or unity of the nation. For example, in the second slide, you were depicting that preamble of our constitution. However, since you have very time limit, you were not mentioning that preamble. But I'm sure that the word you were planning to use is the integrity and unity of the nation. Anyway, my point that I would like to raise here is that Sazaram, I'm going to be very, very brief. Okay. So when we look at that autonomy or autonomous power, uh, Professor SK rightly raised some people, some academician, even some professors in Mizoram would like to remove that autonomous power because they feel that it is not necessary. It is against that unity and integrity of the state of Mizoram. It may be right, but I have different ideas. Since we are a human being, we have to pursue things such as our right to life, liberty, and property. John Locke has mentioned it. And then when we talk about property, the Thomas Jefferson even mentioned that the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He used the word pursuit of happiness. So this pursuit of happiness is, I think, it's very, very important when we look at the autonomous power uh, of our ADC, for example, in Mizoram. Not necessarily in Mizoram, but also the whole Northeast states. Things such as we have our social disadvantages. In fact, all Northeast states, we have our social disadvantages, economic disadvantages, political disadvantages, backwardness. So without the positive action from the government, then we cannot remove these social or economic or political disadvantages or backwardness. Therefore, we need some freedom, some guidance to free us from these disadvantages. Therefore, we call them positive freedom, these things. So I don't think this removing or this autonomy is against unity or integration. Even fraternity, the concept of fraternity. How can we say we are fraternity or integrity or unity if we still have these social or political or economic disadvantages in our life? That is my question. And you may not agree with me, but I think still, That is my idea. I simply would like to raise that voice. Thank you, Sazoram.
Okay.
Okay. Zonula,
Okay.
please.
If I could answer briefly. Mm, that is very interesting and very important question. And at the same time, maybe I was not clear enough when I make my argument, because I was putting that unity and integration with the issue of autonomy as a question in my last slide. And that is the struggle for autonomy against the spirit of unity or integrity? So I put this question for all of us to ponder upon. So, but I think if you listen carefully, the whole presentation, I am sort of more inclined towards the extension of autonomy, or the increase of autonomy for the tribal communities in Northeast region and elsewhere. So I'm not sort of making any argument against the idea of autonomy per se. So I'm just trying just oppose the idea of national integration and unity with reference to the struggle for autonomy in Northeast India and elsewhere. So that was my point, more of a question rather than a statement. So the fact is that, yeah, I completely agree with Dr. Enkima, because that was the founding principles of the Constitution since the birth of Indian state. And you talk about the people who are against those special provisions even within Mizoram, like Professor SK. Yeah, that is true. But one thing which I want all of us to reflect upon tonight when we think about this autonomy issue is, do we have a different kinds of opinion when we are majority? Because we all want some kind of autonomy and special protection in our relationship with the Indian state or the central government. Minorities within minorities, even in Mizoram. Few years ago, if I remember correctly, in 2017-16, the Central WMA passed a resolution in the General Conference for the abolition of the Chakma Autonomous Regional Council, Autonomous Region. And there are opposition from other two autonomous regions, from the LADC and MADC, because they felt that that threatens their existence. So I think this is, we have to sort of, we may have disagreements. We are all entitled to have our opinions and perspective, but at the same time, I think we need to have some kind of basic understanding on how this autonomous provisions works. And when we demand more autonomy from the central government, when we minority, why can't we respect the aspirations of minorities within us to have their own autonomy? So that is, I think, a big question for all of us to answer. Thank you.
Oh, okay. If we continue, it may go up till midnight. So once again, I would like to thank the presenters for sharing their works and for giving responses to the questions. And I think a special mention has to be made of Sir S.K. Sir, thank you for your presence as well as your interaction. And without the interaction from the participants, this conference would not be uh, effective or fruitful. So thank you so much for your participation and lovely interaction. Thank you for bearing with me and for being very patient. I shall now hand over to Dr. Pinky, the chairperson of the session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much to all the paper presenters and everyone. And I know we could go on all night discussing this important topic, but now that it's almost 10, I think. No, it's 9:36, but still, I think we should come to an end of this session. And as we come to the close of this day one online session, on behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to all the paper presenters, our distinguished keynote speaker, and especially to our discussant, Dr. Zoram Sangha, and the participants, of course. I was just checking the strength of our participants, and it really didn't go down as the night went, longer, but still, so thank you so much for sticking on till the end. And we look forward to your participation and your presence tomorrow live at Hotel Regency Conference Hall. The registration will start from 9 to 9:30, and the inaugural will start from 9:30 onwards. And there will be 6 technical sessions. And judging from our evening, I think we can say that it is also going to be a really, really interesting technical session tomorrow. So the international conference on constitutional safeguards and tribal autonomy in Northeast India will continue tomorrow. So thank you all. We'll end here and have a lovely evening. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Vai, não, tchau, né? Não.
Thank you, Becky. It was interesting.